Urgent, present-day landscapes of the Middle East. Mobile radar arrays are scanning the horizon in real time. These systems allow modern militaries to monitor every frequency and detect threats from hundreds of miles away, creating a digital net of constant surveillance. Above the clouds, unmanned aerial systems dictate the pace of movement. These drones can loiter silently over a target for hours, providing a constant stream of intelligence and the capability to strike with surgical precision. Behind the surveillance is the threat of long-range strikes. Mobile launch platforms carrying heavy ballistic missiles can now deliver massive payloads across entire continents in minutes, putting the entire region and the global economy on a knife's edge. While this hardware is cutting edge, the territorial tensions driving its deployment follow a cycle of escalation that began 6,000 years ago. We are seeing the latest iteration of a struggle between the same regional power centers that have been fighting for the same piece of land since the beginning of recorded history. Human civilization began in Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. When the first settlers learned to harvest cereal grains, like wheat and barley, they traded the mobility of hunting and gathering for the permanence of the city. This transition turned these riverbanks into a concentrated hub of human wealth. As these agricultural centers grew into empires, the need for systemic control became absolute. In early Babylon, King Hammurabi codified this control into 282 laws engraved on stone, establishing a rigid hierarchy that determined the value of a citizen's life based on their social class. This concentration of food, land, and people created a permanent target. The geographic value of the river valley ensured that every rising power would eventually face a collapse or a conquest, initiating a cycle of regional dominance that has never truly ended. By 550 BCE, a dominant eastern power emerged to claim the region. Cyrus the Great united the local tribes and conquered Babylon, establishing the Persian Empire as the historically dominant force in Mesopotamia, governed from grand administrative centers like Persepolis. Successor states like the Sasanian Empire inherited this role, building massive cavalry forces specifically to push back against Western powers like the Roman Empire. Their strategic goal was the same as their ancestors, securing the eastern flank of the Middle East against foreign encroachment. When we map the footprint of these ancient empires, they match the modern sphere of influence of the Iranian state. The Sasanian borders have essentially morphed into the political and military reach of Tehran today. Modern Iran's efforts to project power across its neighbors are the direct inheritance of this ancient Persian imperative. It is a 2,500-year-old strategy to maintain an eastern pillar of dominance in the region. At the center of this struggle is Jerusalem, a religious and physical landscape sitting at the crossroads of three major ancient continents. Control over this specific city has always been the ultimate symbol of regional legitimacy. In the 1st century, the Roman Empire occupied the Kingdom of Judea. When the Jewish population revolted, the Romans responded with systematic brutality, eventually building monuments like the Arch of Titus to celebrate the crushing of the rebellion. The Romans eventually razed Jerusalem, killing hundreds of thousands and leaving the province desolate. The surviving remnants, like the Western Wall, became permanent reminders of a historical trauma that saw an entire people nearly erased from their homeland. This deep history of existential threat and displacement forged a singular, absolute survival imperative. The modern state of Israel is rooted in this thousands of years old necessity to resist total destruction by outside powers. The Roman pattern of intervention returned centuries later. In 1095, Pope Urban II called for a holy war to liberate the Levant from Islamic rule, promising spiritual rewards to any European noble or peasant who took up arms in the Crusades. To anchor their presence in a hostile region, Western armies had to solve massive logistical hurdles. They constructed immense fortresses like Crac des Chevaliers on remote hilltops, attempting to enforce their control through sheer physical dominance. These strongholds faced constant friction. Local commanders like Saladin eventually organized a unified response, utilizing their superior knowledge of the terrain and exhausting the Western invaders until they were forced to retreat. From the Roman legions to the Crusaders to modern Western coalitions, every outside power that has attempted to dictate terms in the Middle East has encountered the same immense logistical and ideological friction. The rise of the Islamic caliphates, starting in the 7th century, redrew the region's territorial and ideological map. They established a new, unified cultural landscape that spanned from North Africa to the borders of India. The ultimate shift occurred in 1453, when the Ottoman Empire shattered the last remnants of the Roman world. Sultan Mehmed II breached the massive defensive walls of Constantinople, claiming the city as the capital of a new, expanding superpower. Under the Ottomans, Islamic dominance became total. They transformed the Hagia Sophia into a mosque, marking the height of an empire that would control the region's geography and trade for nearly 500 years. The lines drawn by the Ottomans and their predecessors created the exact territorial borders and factional divides that appear in modern news reports. We are living in the world these ancient empires built. Today, the mechanics of war have simply returned to their roots. Modern naval blockades in the Strait of Hormuz follow the same logic as the ancient sieges of Uruk or Jerusalem. Cut off the supply lines, and the enemy must eventually succumb. The players remain the same. Modern Iran follows the strategic imperatives of ancient Persia. Modern Israel is rooted in Judean resistance. And modern Western alliances face the same logistical and ideological friction that hampered the Crusader states. The breaking news alerts on our phones are the newest entries in human civilization's oldest record of war. We are watching the same struggle for the same board, played with the newest